Hello, I'm here with my dear friend, Siyabulela Mandela. We used to call you Madiba. Madiba is an inspiring leader who connects stories of fighting for equality to concrete actions for social transformation, consultant for international development, human rights, peace, and conflict resolution in different parts of the world, including Africa, Brazil, Portugal, US, Canada, etc. As human rights activists, I would like to ask you, Madiba, thank you so much for this great opportunity here in Web Summit Qatar. Oh, so pleasant. It's a
You.
great pleasure to
No,
me. Okay? And I would like just to send to you the first question. No? As an activist, how do you see the current global challenges in protecting fundamental rights? And what is the individual's responsibility in driving positive change? Please.
well, first and foremost, thank you very much, my dear friend, for an opportunity to have these conversations with you and for creating the platform. And gratitude to your listeners for lending us their ears for this conversation. Well, I think the fight for the protection of human rights is one that concerns all of us. Um, Human rights the as declared by the United Nations 10 December 1948 becomes the fundamental and critical foundation for the values that we hold dear as members of the international community. These are the values that we all agreed upon that everyone ought to be afforded. It does become the foundation of the values of freedom, justice, and the values of peace in the world. Without all these values, without those human rights, which is insofar as the UN Charter is concerned, the UN Declaration of 1948, all the 30 articles of the Human Rights Universal Declaration form the basis by which we live today, and they become the foundation of all these values that we all hold dear, the fundamental values that we all hold dear. So thus, it becomes then a critical and a collective responsibility to all of us as members of the human race to defend, advocate, and protect these values whenever they are threatened. For these are when human rights are violated, when human rights are threatened, it's a direct attack to the values that we all hold dear, and the beauty of it is the key is in the world universal. So even if you are in Brazil, to my Brazilian friends and brothers and companies and organizations that I work with, even if you are in Lisbon, in Portugal, even if you are in South Africa, even here in Qatar or in Iraq or anywhere else in the world, it should matter when human rights are violated. Yeah. And thus it is your collective responsibility as an individual, and it is our collective responsibilities as all members of the human family to defend and protect when those rights are violated, to even hold those who violate those rights to account. So thus, an instance of human rights violation wherever it happens in the world, be it in Gaza, in Palestine,
Yeah.
be it in Sudan, be it in Ukraine, we should be able to stand up as the global community to say this is actually a violation. Yes. And it is a direct attack to us, because
Yes.
if it can happen to those in Sudan, if it can happen to those in Ukraine or those in Palestine, it can happen to us in South Africa, to those in Brazil, to those in Portugal, to those in any other country in the world. It means that you can be affected. You should be able, therefore, to stand up when such human rights violations are taking place wherever they are in the world.
Everybody individually has the full
We have a
responsibility
responsibility.
in putting
I mean, the likes of Desmond Tutu, for instance, the great leader,
Mhm.
put it quite simply and say, neutrality in the times of injustice is nothing but siding with those that are oppressed. It's siding with the oppressor. So there is no such thing as being neutral in a case of human rights violation. If you are neutral, it therefore means that you are actually siding with the oppressor. So we ought to hold you to account as well.
Yes. Good words. If we are neutral, it means that we are against, not against human rights, or against all the effort, all the activism
Yeah, exactly.
effort in order to
Exactly. So
to do
that's
something.
for me the sketch of uh, gang violence and its impact, for instance, in the favelas in
Yes.
Brazil
Uh-huh.
has a direct impact for me, even if I'm in
Yes.
South Africa,
Uh-huh.
because I see that as a flagrant violation of human rights,
Yes.
and there ought to be an intervention, and we ought to mobilize global solidarity towards those that are affected, be it's the sketch of gang violence in the favelas, for instance, or the lack of adequate housing and access to basic services when you have people living in inhumane conditions, for instance, in the favelas in Brazil or in the townships in South Africa. We ought to mobilize the international community to respond into that issue, because it is a flagrant and a deliberate human rights violation. And we must hold those who are committing such injustices to account. So it should be, the issue of human rights should be something that is central to all of us as members of human rights, regardless of geography.
Unfortunately, we don't have time, but I think we could include what's happening with immigrants.
Of course.
We are all of us immigrants, and we are facing
Definitely. Well, it's even becoming even more prominent in Europe now, where most of European countries are talking on closing their borders. You
Yes.
saw what the leader of AFD in Germany, for instance, the second, the most extremist organization, which actually is now the largest opposition group as per the results of yesterday in the German election. And their leader is quite adamant and open about the fact that they want to shut down the borders of Germany.
Okay.
They want to not only shut down, they want to kick out anyone that is an immigrant, you know. And it's the same thing that Trump is doing in the United States, and most likely with the right-wing organization that almost came into power, even in France, we're probably going to see similar results of direct attack towards immigrants. So those are some of the issues that we should actually look very closely, because in most cases, people are leaving their countries and seeking safe haven in their country because they are running away from war, human rights violation, the injustices that are taking place in their own countries, seeking places where they can enjoy
survive
in peace these human rights. And now when they get into these countries and they have to be sent back from where they come from, or they are not even allowed. And many of them die in their journey to these countries. A lot of people from the Middle East and from Africa who are dying in the sea in their attempt to cross over in search of a better life. And the search for a better life is the search for a space where they can be able to be protected, they have access to basic services, and they are able to enjoy these very same fundamental human rights we are talking about today. So the issue of immigration is really becoming one of the key prominent agendas into most leaders within the European Union.
Okay, and fortunately we have you in your great work, okay, trying to put knowledge and this awareness in everybody you meet in all countries in the world. You take place in lectures, and you're a great teacher, and fortunately we'll have you. And I would like to address, talking about violations or human rights related to elder people. Okay, I take part in an association in Portugal. The name is Stop Idadismo or Stop Ageism. It's another situation, okay, where is frequently events, situations, hurting okay, not a good way to treat people over 50 years old sometimes. What could can you say to us in order to strong our job as activists against ageism?
Well, I think we need to we in the interest of time, since we have only 1 minute, I think we need to probably look at reshaping our messaging around the senior generation. We need to begin thinking along terms of not seeing our senior citizens as people who are old, as actually the holders of the keys to knowledge and wisdom. These are the people who have walked the path that we are walking as this generation, and these are the people that we should consider as the ones to guide us on what are some of the things that we should avoid, for they have made the mistakes that we can actually avoid. These are the people with massive wisdom that can actually help to guide us into a better future. If our fight is to fight for a better future and a better tomorrow, we only have the senior citizens to offer to us that wisdom on the road that they have walked, and what are some of the pitfalls to avoid as we pivot in this journey of life. So when we begin to change our frame of thinking and the language that we use, perhaps then we'll be able to help to diffuse some of the stereotypes around that.
Okay, and still in the ageism matter, do you see benefits in the generational harmony? People of different generations living together in order to get rid of the ageism.
Well, of course. I mean, it begins with if we co-create spaces when we can live together, we are able to, in practical terms, have what you call intergenerational dialogue and exchange of information. If, as it is in current special development, you have the senior citizens being placed in a particular place outside the structures of what we, outside the institutions that we are used to. And to me, that creates the very same stereotypes that we want to run away from. The fact that when you are old, we send our grandmothers and grandfathers to old age homes. That shouldn't be the case, because it reinforces the very same stereotypes around ageism. We should be allowed to co-create spaces where we continue to live with them until they finish their terms in this universe. That way, we'll be able to reinforce the need for intergenerational dialogue and exchange of information.
And to final, please, what message or recommendation would you like to share with everybody about social justice, about the benefits of the harmony intergenerational?
Well, I would say to the younger generation, we have a collective responsibility to build upon the foundations that were laid to us by the previous generation. And it is only when we are able to engage in this intergenerational dialogue with them that we'll be able to understand how to pivot and navigate the future, for they have walked the road before us. But as this generation, our collective responsibility is to build upon the foundation that we have laid for us. As we advance further for a better future for this generation and generations yet to come. But it is only through that intergenerational dialogue that we can unlock these innovative approaches and ways in order to pivot and navigate the world as we aspire to create a better world for all. So that would be my last message.
Madiba, thank you so much. Muito obrigada.